parts, maybe playing a role, moving parts around a manufacturing facility instead of just a warehouse, or operating and doing repair work in a dangerous environment where a person can't go. Maybe you really need dexterous manipulation to figure out why a piece of equipment is failing, and it's clear across the country. And you don't have to go because a robot can be there.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
Position to tackle inflation than almost any other country around the world.
What Juneteenth does is it channels a way for America to talk about slavery and to talk about it without intimidation and without anguish, to honor slaves who have never been honored.
I'm Pamela Brown in Washington. You are live in the CNN newsroom. Happy Juneteenth and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And we begin this hour with new CNN reporting. U.S. intelligence officials are on alert this weekend after warnings that Russian operators could once again be hatching a plan to undermine American elections. They say Moscow's tactics like mounting disinformation campaigns and hacking into small local election systems could disrupt this fall's midterms. CNN's Isaac Dover is following these new warnings.
It's more sophistication and the kinds of asymmetric warfare that are involved here, and also more divisions that the Russians are able to play into. What officials that I spoke to are warning of is the potential that Russian hackers will go in and deliberately get caught so that they are then exposed and people say, oh, the Russians got into our system, and that undermines faith in the elections even more. Obviously, we're seeing that is a huge problem right now, especially among supporters of former President Trump, who have pushed the idea that there are problems with the election integrity.
Wow, that is so fascinating, just the change in the thinking from the Russian side, right? Because before they always did we had nothing to do with this, but now they actually would want they would want them to be identified. And look, the fact is, this is a hyper-partisan climate, right? Disinformation has become more sophisticated, as you said. Tell us how officials believe these threats could play out beyond that.
Well, look, one of the things that we sometimes forget about is that the elections are administered by about 8,000 different authorities around the country, at the county level, the local level. These are people, imagine election clerks, county election clerks that are going up against the Russian intelligence right now. Right. And that they have to rely on whatever systems they have to, and whatever, so a couple of the people that I spoke to said, look, I talked to my IT guys, we're trying what we can do to get security. So one of the things that was sketched out to me was that it could be as simple as going in and getting voter registration records and posting them online. And if you think about how many tremors that would send through the system, oh, the Russians are in the system, they know what's going on. Can they try to change the results of the election? Are any of these things possible? They're all possible, even though actually election security has gotten much higher over the last couple of years. But the Russians are now playing into, the intelligence officials think, this feeling that is around that there are problems.
And you just have to think about those election workers, many of them volunteers, civil servants, already been under siege since the 2020 election, now having to deal with this. So you have this atmosphere of distrust in elections, coupled with just the sheer number of local elections. U.S. officials are saying, look, there is no way to truly be ready for an attack. So what, if anything, are they doing to counteract this?
Well, look, there are efforts going on to try to share information with local election officials. These are best practices, but there's only so much that can be done. There's a lot of push among officials that I spoke to actually get out there ahead publicly and talk about this threat. But part of the problem is that since there's so much distrust around already, it's not like President Biden could walk out and say, hey, the Russians are trying to hack our elections, and we should expect that, at least among a lot of people, that would be taken seriously. And so it puts American officials in this really difficult position. When there is hacking, do they call it out and say this is the Russians because that is actually what's going on, or does it feed more distrust, or what do they do about it? And meanwhile, the Russian intelligence and the Russian government that's behind this are only happy to see more and more division sown within America because it undermines faith in America, it undermines Americans' faith in each other, and puts us into more and more problems.
The January 6th committee holds 2 more hearings this week. First up, on Tuesday, we'll focus on then-President Donald Trump's pressure on state elections officials to illegally overturn his loss. CNN's Caitlin Polantz is here, so walk us through what to expect, Caitlin.
Well, Pam, every time that the committee is meeting in these public sessions, they're building out a different aspect of what they've learned about this plan to overturn the election result in 2020. So on Tuesday, it's going to be all about the states, specifically the battleground states that Donald Trump lost, but that he still was putting pressure on him, his campaign, the White House, and he was specifically making phone calls to people in both Arizona and in Georgia. We're going to hear a lot more about those 2 states in particular, those phone calls. We know that the 3 people that are set to testify on Tuesday are all Republican state officials, 2 of them from Georgia. One is the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Another is his deputy, Gabe Sterling. And those 2 men are crucial in telling this story because they were receiving direct pressure from Trump in a phone call in January 2021 when Trump told Raffensperger to find him votes. We've heard about that a lot. That's going to be part of the hearing Tuesday. They also are going to be looking into Arizona, where another state official, the Speaker of the House in Arizona, Rusty Bowers, he's going to be testifying about a call he too received from Trump. And it was less about finding votes specifically, but more about his power in the state legislature and using a slate of electors for Trump to supplant the electors for Joe Biden that were the rightful electors to be sent to the federal government to certify the election. So those are the men we're going to be hearing from. And all of these stories that are going to be told involve lots of people, campaign officials, lawyers for Trump. But the committee keeps reminding us every single time we hear from them and in the hearings themselves that this is about Trump himself, what he was doing as president, what he was doing as the head of his campaign, and what he personally knew and was deciding to say to different people. Here's what members of the committee were saying earlier today in different interviews about their findings so far and also what we're going to be seeing in these upcoming hearings.
I certainly think the president is guilty of knowing what he did, seditious conspiracy, being involved in these, kind of different segments of pressuring DOJ, vice president, et cetera.
We'll show evidence of the president's involvement in this scheme. We'll also, again, show evidence about what his own lawyers came to think about this scheme.
Why not subpoena Mike Pence, for example, if he won't? I know you asked him to testify voluntarily. That didn't happen.
We're not taking anything off the table in terms of witnesses who have not yet testified.
So Mike Pence is a possibility still?
Certainly a possibility. We're not excluding anyone or anything at this point.
So that comment from Adam Schiff there is a reminder, too, that these public hearings, there are stories we've already heard before. In some aspects, we've heard from these officials before, but this is a living, breathing, ongoing investigation. Schiff there is saying that there is the possibility for surprises to come, more witnesses potentially that we have never heard from before. Pam?
Yeah, like they just recently asked Virginia Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, the justice, to come and speak to them. We'll see if that happens. All right, Caitlin Polantz, thank you so much. Well, many Americans traveling on this Father's Day have seen their plans thrown into chaos. More than 850 flights were canceled today and more than 3,000 since Friday. That is despite sky-high ticket prices, thanks in part to the worst inflation in 40 years. CNN's Camila Bernal is at LAX in Los Angeles, and CNN's Arlette Saenz is traveling with President Biden in Delaware. Arlette, I want to start with you. The president can leave Washington, but he can't escape concerns over the economy. How is the White House trying to reassure Americans who are growing increasingly nervous right now?
Yeah, Pamela, the White House is really trying to offer assurances to Americans about the prospects for the economy, even while they're acknowledging the pain that so many people are feeling as they see these skyrocketing prices. Today, the top cabinet officials and other economic officials were echoing President Biden's argument that he does not believe a recession in this country is inevitable, even as some economists are predicting that one is looming. And take a listen to what Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm had to say earlier today, as she also warned that this could be a very tough summer when it comes to gas prices.
The president is really focused on preventing these inflationary increases to the extent he can. Inflation obviously is happening globally. A recession is not inevitable, The president really wants to have a steady and stable recovery. But of course, one of the biggest pieces of these inflationary increases that we're seeing is the price of fuel. We know this is going to be a tough summer because driving season just started, and we know that there will be continued upward pull on demand.
Now, the White House has also said they are considering a range of options to try to lower some of these prices. Energy Secretary Granholm, in that same interview, said that one thing being discussed was the possibility of pausing the gas tax, though she did say that that may be difficult to do since that tax pays for so many road and infrastructure projects. Now, a little bit later this week, Granholm will also be hosting a meeting where she's invited the executives of 7 oil refining companies as they're trying to find ways and discuss ways to lower those gas prices. Pamela.
All right, Arlette, thanks so much. Camila, bringing you in. What is causing so many delays on this busy travel weekend?
Well, Pam, there are a lot of people traveling. In fact, the TSA is saying that they screened about 2.4 million passengers on Friday. That's the highest number that they've seen since the Sunday after Thanksgiving. The problem is that the airlines just cannot keep up, and there are a number of reasons for this. One of them being weather problems. The other, a shortage in staff. There are complications in terms of infrastructure and the challenges there. So everything added up means more and more cancellations. As you said, between Friday and today, more than 3,000 flights already canceled, and more are expected this summer. Airlines already announcing cancellations for the next couple of months. Airlines like Southwest and Delta. Southwest also even saying they need to hire about 10,000 people, and they just have not been able to do that. Pilots speaking out through their unions, saying they're frustrated and they're tired, but so are the flyers, the passengers whose flights are being canceled. I spoke to one of them, and here's what she told me.
I'm trying to get back, and I was supposed to be taking Alaska Airlines, but they said that the flight was canceled because of the short of staffs. They said they short of pilots, cabin crew, you know, all kinds of shortage they have now.
And she spent 4 hours on the phone with Alaska Airlines trying to reschedule that canceled flight. Unfortunately, there are many other passengers this summer that are going to be experiencing very similar scenarios. Pam.
All right, Camila Bernal, Arlette Saenz, thank you both. You were in the CNN newsroom on this Sunday. Up next, multiple people shot, one person dead after a shooting in the heart of Las Vegas. What investigators are saying sparked the violence. And then shocking video from New Hampshire, a 70-foot yacht completely engulfed in flames, as you see right here. Also tonight, helping the hungry, meet the North Carolina chef who is helping feed Ukrainian refugees and meeting a lot of special people along the way. Plus, we are counting down to the Juneteenth celebration for freedom, airing right here on CNN. We have Grammy Award-winning jazz pianist Robert Glasper. He's joining us live from the concert, and we'll be right back.
On Mission Ahead, a new spin on launching spacecraft into orbit.
As a species, I think we just always look up and we say, well, that's the next frontier.
Then, could this new zero-emission boat be the Tesla of the sea? Plus, preparing for the future, are cities that float the answer?
On water, buildings don't have to be static.
Meet the entrepreneurs and inventors who are taking mobility to the next level.
Mission Ahead, Saturday on CNN, in association with Fujifilm.
It is actually very complicated to move money around the world. Few companies can do it at scale. Few companies can do it in the number of countries that we do it. And so these companies that come together, like MoneyGrams and like our competitors, do really provide a very unique service, and that is to instantly move money, get funds from the United States to Mexico, literally in sub-seconds. For the ability to take $350 that you worked hard to earn and get it back to your mother so that she can pick it up in Mexico, use it for food, healthcare, housing, is actually a very unique service. If you're from many of the countries, Mexico, Philippines, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, some of the largest receive markets in the world, it's absolutely critical to the lives of the consumers in those countries. But many people don't appreciate that. If it's not the life that you live, then it's not something that you really ever really get involved in.
troops, they are Russian. I've spoken to the commander. He said they are now in control. Over on that way. It's a secret location. They're going to fire on Russian forces. There has been a ferocious battle here. There's unexploded grenades everywhere. We're being shown the powerful American guns, giving them an edge.
You downplayed the US intelligence assessment. Do you now regret that?
I'm in Kiev right now, and it is under attack, Mr. Lavrov, from Russian forces.
I'm being told by our security that we need to get our flak jackets on.
No matter where you are in this country, lives are being shattered.
There are thousands streaming out. It is at least a chance to save their own lives. Matthew Chance, CNN.
Heard it all before? But have you heard it like this?
The ultimate disruptor looks set to shake up our world. We really can't ignore the impact that this has. What can we do that explores a fresh angle? So let's untangle the players and political forces. The truth is a lot more complex. What's really going on?
Fast-paced news, in-depth reports, and fact checks from the perspective of The Global Brief with Bianca Nobilo. Tonight on CNN.
Well, it has been another deadly weekend in America with gun violence reported in every corner of the country. CNN's Miguel Marquez has the latest for us this evening.
Pam, sadly, it's another typical weekend of gun violence in America. Among other places, Chicago, Vegas, South Carolina, Virginia, and New York City, all seeing violence from guns this weekend. In Chicago, 32 people were shot. 3 are dead in 22 separate incidents. In one of them, the guy was just sitting on his front porch on Friday evening when he was shot and killed. In Las Vegas, there was a shooting at the very busy, very touristy Fremont Street area. That's where all those downtown casinos are. One person was shot, several others injured there. In South Carolina, 2 people are dead after a shooting at a nightclub there. And in New York City, 1 person's dead, 2 others shot at a home in Queens. And Tyson's Corner Mall in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. It's a very, very big, very busy mall. A fight broke out there. There was shooting that occurred during the fight. It prompted an evacuation. While nobody was shot or killed in the shooting, several people were injured as they tried to escape. And look, most of these do not amount to mass shooting incidents. That's 4 or more people shot or killed in a single incident. But the Gun Violence Archive says that we are on record to beat last year's record pace. We are at 273 mass shootings so far this year. All of this as Congress is inching toward gun reform. The bill that's making its way forward doesn't really please both sides very much, but it may be the most that Congress has done in quite some time and may come to a vote in the next week or two. Then there's the Supreme Court. It could decide as soon as this week on a controversial case that would allow states to make it easier to carry concealed weapons. That case will certainly be watched in states like here in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, Hawaii, and Massachusetts. Pam?
All right, thanks so much, Miguel. And we should also know that this is the sad reality of America right now. The number of mass shootings Miguel mentioned has now risen to 275, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Well, take a look at this footage right here from New Hampshire State Police. A 70-foot yacht engulfed in flames. 3 people and 2 dogs had to jump overboard. Boaters nearby rescued them. No one was hurt, fortunately, but the yacht, as you can imagine, was doomed. It eventually sank off the coast of Maine. No word on what caused that fire. Up next, on this Sunday, this Father's Day and Juneteenth, as Americans face soaring inflation and a rate hike from the Federal Reserve, the president and his advisors insist a recession isn't inevitable. How does that messaging land ahead of the midterms?
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta in New York, and this is CNN.
He's interviewed 5 U.S. presidents, authored 7 books, and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smerconish, Saturday on CNN.
End of 2021,
we had 7.28 million tourists that came into Dubai. Not big numbers compared to before, but very big considering the circumstances globally. Then you look at the first quarter of this year, where Expo, of course, was tail-ending the second half of Expo. We had close to 4 million visitors that came in Q1. That's amazing.
You're not back at pre-COVID levels then?
Not yet,
Not
but
yet.
the spirit is there. For us as Dubai, the appetite was always to go back to pre-COVID as much as we could. So it's great the fact that the private and public sector relationship is so strong that whatever we do it together. I always talk about Dubai being almost like a board, where even the private sector have a say, and they're heard, and then things are implemented. So it's not just one person decides everything else. That's the difference about Dubai.
Want a daily dose of Fareed and his team? Now you can get it with Fareed's Global Briefing, the newsletter that gives you the best insight and analysis on global affairs. Go to cnn.com/Fareed to sign up.
You can help the refugees from Ukraine. Join the over 80,000 who've already raised millions for food, shelter, and more. Explore cnn.com/impact. Click to take action.
So many questions about what is the federal government doing. Do you get the anger that is out here?
How concerned are you about the front line?
You don't believe that there's a racial divide here?
Looking back, as president, did you tell the story of race in America enough, do you think? All the places I've been and all the things I've seen, all the people I've talked to, I carry with me. They're a part of what I do right here, holding the powerful accountable, keeping them honest.
AC 360, Tuesday through Saturday only on CNN. This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
Americans are paying more for less. The stock market took a week-long tumble, mortgage rates spiked, and the Fed made its biggest interest rate hike in decades. The White House has one message when it comes to recession fears.
Well, I don't think a recession is inevitable.
Well, one of the reasons it's not inevitable is because families and businesses are starting off from a strong position.
A recession is not inevitable.
Not only is a recession not inevitable, but I think that a lot of people are underestimating those strengths and the resilience of the American economy.
I'm joined now by a pair of CNN political commentators, Republican strategist Alice Stewart and Democratic strategist Maria Cardona. Ladies, always great to see you and have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Maria, what do you make of this messaging here? Hey, this bad outcome might not happen. in your view, how can the White House do a better job reassuring Americans on this #1 issue?
It is so tough right now. The economic environment is one of the hardest things that Democrats are facing going into the midterm elections. There really is no other messaging that they can use, Pam. I mean, can you imagine if they sit here and say, yeah, I actually think a recession is possible? There's no way they would ever say that. But plus, I do think that what they're saying in terms of the economic fundamentals is absolutely right. There were a myriad of states, 17 I think, that hit the lowest unemployment rate that they've had in decades. That is good news. So the underlying fundamentals of the economy are really strong. That doesn't give, you or I or Alice or people, working people, families that are struggling every time they go and fill up the pump or try to go get groceries, right? That doesn't make them feel any better, but it is the truth. And they have to be saying things like a recession is not inevitable, because people need to understand that there are still things as I don't know, as little as they might be, that this administration can do. Plus, I think what they're trying to do as well, and I think this is important, is message to the American people that this should also be something that Republicans should be helping them to fix. And when they look at what Republicans are trying to do, there are zero solutions there, Pam. The only thing that Republicans are doing is trying to blame this administration and blocking every single thing that could bring some kind of solution to the economy.
Well, bless Maria for towing the Democratic Party line. Look, what she's actually saying is, you can't blame us, the Democrats, for saying that we're not heading into a recession, even if it's not true. This is the same administration and the same talking point writers that were saying that inflation was transitory. Here we are, a year and a half in, we're still facing terrible inflation. And you look at the numbers, the Real Clear Politics average of people's view of how President Biden is handling the economy, it's at 33%. 33%, that's terrible. And the big question as you head into any election is you ask voters, do you feel better? How are you feeling about your economic situation in life? And do you approve of where you are? 22% say they're not in favor, they don't have confidence in the direction of this country. That's not bad. And Republicans don't want this. This is, I mean, Republicans are going to the pump. We're paying $5 a gallon for gas, just like the Democrats are, and they certainly don't want things to head in this direction.
I do want to ask, though, because we are seeing inflation go up all over the world, right? I mean, the UK is also seeing the highest inflation rate in 40 years, and no doubt gas prices were rising before the war in Ukraine. But if Republicans were in the White House, I mean, what would they have done differently for the prices to be lower than they are now?
Well, certainly the Biden administration missed an opportunity or took away an opportunity when it comes to gas and energy production by imposing burdensome federal regulations on domestic energy production. The regulations imposed by this administration did not help things in the front end, and certainly as we've gotten into Ukraine, it has made matters much worse. And Republicans would have supported domestic energy production and put policies in place that would help Americans. And there was the proposal on the table to give gas credit cards or credits, and the Biden administration didn't do so. Look, I think there's an opportunity if we want to look at reducing the gas tax or putting a pause on gas tax. That is a good step forward, but something has to be done. And continuing to blame this on Putin, the American people see through that.
Is that a missed opportunity for the Biden administration to not give out these gas rebate cards?
Well, I think that there is still going to be some opportunities for this administration and this Congress to do something, and I am hoping that Republicans will actually join us. I doubt it, because I think they actually do enjoy this, because the only thing that they like to do is to blame the Democrats. And look, the fact of the matter is, now it's my turn to bless my friend Alice, that on the energy production, there are tons of licenses of permits that are not being used, that this administration has given out and are not being used. It is a fact that oil companies are having major, major profits on the backs of the people who are trying to go and fill up their gas tanks. And when there was an opportunity for Republicans to join Democrats to figure out a way to stop that price gouging, they said no. They turned their back. What does that tell me? They're not interested in solutions. Going into the midterms, that tells me that Republicans are only interested in blaming Biden, when in fact they know that this was
majorly out of the control of one president when this is a global economic situation where, in fact, the United States is in the best position compared to all these other countries that you just mentioned.
All right, I want to switch gears, get to some new CNN reporting before I let you ladies go. This reporting is that U.S. officials are worried about Russia meddling in the midterms, specifically by aiming to erode faith in America's election integrity. Alice, such a huge portion of the Republican Party already has no faith in the system, in large part because of Donald Trump and others parroting the lie that the 2020 election was stolen. Do you think Russia would have a much harder time doing this if that lie was never pushed? These conspiracies were never pushed in the first place.
Sure. When they see a leak in the system or an avenue to find division in the American political system and confidence, they're going to move full speed ahead right into that. And yes, the GOP-led efforts to discredit the integrity of our election provides them perfect fodder for doing so. And I wish it would stop. I think the most important thing we can do as a party and as a country is to restore confidence in the election process and make sure people get out and vote. But no doubt, no question about it, Russia is going to use this midterm election and 2024 to find areas of division and capitalize on that. They do this all the time, hacking systems and bragging about them and taking credit for it. They just want to show the American people that they have influence in the election, regardless of the party, but they do want to have an impact on elections.
But Marie, do you think that Democrats, the White House, should be sounding the alarm more about this, similar to how they sounded the alarm with, like, hey, Russia's going to invade Ukraine. Russia's going to, we heard that repeatedly. Do Democrats need to do the same here?
I think they should, but there's also a danger in that we don't want to scare people to make them believe less in our elections, right? So there is a balancing act that you have to follow there. Going into the midterm elections, I agree with Alice. There's no question that Russia is going to do everything that they can to continue to sow division in our country. They did it so easily in 2016 and tried to do it again in 2020. The misinformation and disinformation is out there. And I do wish that Republicans, especially those that are still supporting the big lie, would understand how incredibly dangerous this is. But the fact of the matter is, and sadly, they don't care. And so many of them, Pam, are now in positions to take the candidates who have won, over 100 of them are supporters of the big lie, and they are in positions to now be able to make decisions on those elections. That should be terrifying, and that is what we need to continue to be talking about, the safety in our elections.
All right, Alice Stewart, Maria Cardona, thank you both.
Thanks, Pam.
Well, you were in the CNN newsroom on this Sunday. We're going to take you live to the Hollywood Bowl ahead of tonight's Juneteenth celebration. That's next.
Business never sleeps. As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chatterley, journalist, global market analyst, and host of CNN's First Move. Join me in the financial capital of the world for market-moving perspective on the news influencing global politics, culture, and finance. I'll speak to newsmakers, risk takers, and the ultimate game changers. Bold moves, big deals, winning trades. It's all right here. Make CNN your first move.
First Move with Julia Chatterley. Today on CNN.
I am Nigerian by blood, British by birth, and American by residence. It is important to me that those same strands of inclusivity that flow through me are mirrored in the stories that we tell. One World is a place where Africa has an equal seat at the global table alongside Europe, the Americas, and Asia. Every continent has a voice, and where everyone watching has a stake in the global conversation.
One World with Zain Asher, tonight on CNN.
Our mission here at CNN and journalists, the news comes first. That's when your heart beats a little bit faster. More breaking news that we are following right now. You really work as hard as you can, getting the facts. We're learning more about our alleged plot. It is critically important.
To our viewers in the United States and around the world, welcome to the Situation Room. We have breaking.
We're here now at the home of one of the FSB team, and my name's Clarissa Ward. I work for CNN. Was it your team that poisoned Navalny?
It's just been a chaotic scene here.
People are so exhausted. Just gonna help her carry this bag.
We were just in the hospital. It was shocking. Why do you think India has been hit so badly? Scores of Taliban fighters, and just behind us, the U.S. Embassy.
Why does a small group of women asking for their right to be educated threaten you so much?
Raise your hand if you love school.
I'm the one who has to look them in the eye. Can I have your word? These people are depending on you.
You can hear gunshots every couple minutes. Now they're pressing in. They want desperately to tell their story.
Well, just a short time from now, CNN will broadcast the first ever worldwide special Juneteenth, a global celebration for freedom. The event will feature a long list of Black artists and visionaries as they observe America's newest federal holiday. CNN's Sarah Seidner is at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. Things just getting started there. Sarah, what can you tell us?
We are still listening to sound checks. It is the most fabulous group of people who have come together for this. We have, including the all-black orchestra called the Recollective. It's the first time they've had an all-black orchestra play here in the Hollywood Bowl. I want you to see, though, the Hollywood Bowl. This is something that is iconic LA. It is a huge venue nestled in the hills of the Hollywood Hills. It is one of my favorite spots in this town, but it is a spot that anyone, anywhere across the world can enjoy because this is going to be live on television, literally globally, and there are so many different acts. And one of the things that people really wanted to show off here is they know that this is a celebration, right? It is a time to celebrate the freedom of African slaves who had been enslaved for 2.5 years longer than others after the Emancipation Proclamation. And so it is supposed to be joyous, but it's also supposed to be a time to teach the history, to teach American history, to teach Black American history, and to show you that Black folks can do it all. There are all different genres, from country to jazz to pop. We've got Earth, Wind and Fire we've been listening to, who is still incredible and can hit those high notes. So you're going to see a real wonderful collection of human beings here, all Black folks. This is put on by a Black producer, a Black director. It really shows the gamut of what Black people can do in this country and where they came from, the difficulties that they were able to overcome. And so that will be a part of this as well. We will also hear from some of our leaders and people that you know very well, including President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris, as well as Michelle Obama. They're all speaking. You are listening to some of the singing that you're going to hear. There's gospel as well. But this is just really, it is a time for everyone in America to learn about this history and to enjoy themselves. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun. There will be dancing, there will be poetry, there will be music, as you can hear, from all different genres, all put on by Black folks.
Yeah, it's beautiful music. Oh my goodness, can't wait to tune in to this. Sarah Seidner, thank you so much. And Juneteenth on CNN, hosted by Don Lemon, starts at the top of the hour, followed by Juneteenth, a global celebration for freedom at 8. Well, this is just the second year that Juneteenth has been a federal holiday, and many people are still learning more about the history of Juneteenth. In fact, CNN has a quiz right now on our homepage, 10 questions all about the holiday. And here's one. Which state was the first to recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday? We're going to bring you the answer to that later on in the show. And you were in the CNN newsroom. Russian missiles destroyed a train carrying food supplies from World Central Kitchen. A volunteer with that organization joins me live next to talk about their important work.
Almost all carbon emissions come from industries that shape our world. But at Standard Chartered, we believe progress doesn't have to cost our planet. That's why we're mobilizing $300 billion to help our clients change the way they operate, accelerating the transition to a net zero world. Because where others see problems, we see potential. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
I'm Bill Weir in Greenland, and this is CNN.
We share this place, we all belong.
I'm James Roby. I'm the Global Head of Environmental Sustainability at Capgemini. People often ask, why should businesses care about sustainability? Well, first of all, quite frankly, an unsustainable pathway is not going to be good for any business. Businesses are reliant on having consumers that will buy from them. They're reliant on having employees who want to work for them. Increasingly, all the stakeholders of the business are asking difficult questions. So businesses which aren't taking sustainability seriously essentially are going to be out of business. But in reality, it's never too late to start. A great way to start is by trying to understand your own impacts as an organisation, perhaps calculate your carbon footprint. Ultimately, we need everybody on this journey, so why not start today?
on Mission Ahead, a new spin on launching spacecraft into orbit.
As a species, I think we just always look up and we say, well, that's the next frontier.
Then, could this new zero-emission boat be the Tesla of the sea? Plus, preparing for the future, are cities that float the answer?
On water, buildings don't have to be static.
Meet the entrepreneurs and inventors who are taking mobility to the next level.
Mission Ahead, Saturday on CNN, in association with Fujifilm.
Celebrity chef Jose Andres says a Russian missile strike on a train hauling food for Ukrainians won't stop his organization's mission. A Russian missile blew up the World Central Kitchen food train last week in eastern Ukraine. Andres tweeted that nobody was hurt and only one wagon of food was lost. I want to bring in Ernie Adler. He just returned Thursday from Poland, where he was helping feed Ukrainian refugees through Chef Andres' program. Hi, Ernie. Good to see you again. We spoke on the show before you went overseas. Now you're back, just got back Thursday. Tell us, what was that experience like?
Well, first, today's actually a tough day because think about it. It's Father's Day, and we're celebrating fathers, and kids are celebrating fathers. And imagine standing at the trains when they would come in the afternoon and at night, and moms would come off with their kids. And my thought process was always, how did these kids say goodbye to their fathers, to their grandfathers, to their brothers who were fighting age? Because they're all staying behind in Ukraine. So this is a tough day for everyone.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think that's so important you make that point, because their fathers stay behind to fight in Ukraine. Just going back, what inspired you to go to Poland and volunteer?
So originally, when we spoke a few weeks ago, my background, my ancestors came from Poland and Ukraine and Russia. And I've been a student of history and Russian history back to college days. And when the war first broke out, it really kind of hit home. And I thought, like a lot of other charities, I could write a check and let somebody else do the heavy lifting. And I decided that it was time for me to do some of that heavy lifting myself, because somebody has to do it. I'm familiar with World Central Kitchen and some of their relief efforts throughout the world. And being a cook, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to go over there and feed people, because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that connects all people everywhere. We all have to eat every day.
It's so true. You blogged your entire trip on your website, and then in one entry on June 8th, it was titled, "Here is Why I'm Here." And you met this 9-year-old refugee. Tell us about her.
So there was a train that came in about 9 o'clock every night. They didn't always run on time, but they would come in and they would pass through border security. Then they would come right over to World Central Kitchen, had a tent set up, and they would come into us, and we had hot food and cold food and toys for the kids. Immediately, I spotted this beautiful little girl, and I could tell her mom was having a tough time. She was just tired, but like all the moms, they were just trying to hold it together and keep the kids happy. And the kids seemed like they had a pretty good disposition. But right away, she came up to me, and she had a beautiful little drawing that I could just tell, I've got kids myself. She was working on it maybe for the entire train trip. And behind us, we had a bulletin board, and there were other pictures from other kids, and she wanted to take a picture. And I did all I could not to break down.
We're showing the picture right here on the screen. It's just precious. What did Ukrainian refugees...
And there were kids...
Go ahead.
Yeah, there were kids like that all the time. I mean, boys, girls, teenagers, anyone who's fighting age has to stay over there. But it was just heartbreaking to see all these kids without a father, without a brother, without a grandfather.
And we were talking in the break before this segment, and you were saying just how emotionally spent you are after being over there and seeing all these kids, these families struggling, their husbands and fathers still fighting in Ukraine. Tell us what it's like for you as you sort of decompress from this trip.
It's hard because being a student of history, and then at the end of my trip, I went to Auschwitz and then touring that, and I'm standing there thinking, in the middle of this, the past history and the current history, how is this happening? How is the world letting this happen? And in past years, we've had Syria, we've had Afghanistan, and we just keep repeating these things over and over and over again. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop for humanity's sake. And it's hard to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I understand that feeling totally. Ernie Adler, thanks for being on, and happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you.
We are just a short time away from our Juneteenth celebration right here on CNN, a live preview from one of the performers, Grammy award-winning pianist Robert Glasper, up next.
I'm Ben Wiedemann in Ukraine, and this is CNN.
When you think of Africa, you think of a lion. There's no feeling more primal than walking in the bush, knowing there are lions around. It's almost like a rewilding of the self. One of the central principles of rewilding is actually to manage an ecosystem less. It's to give nature back to nature, give nature back to itself. It's not just about bringing back a species that existed maybe 300 or 400 years ago. Rewilding is also about bringing back the ecosystem. It's a key role, really, that they play in controlling herbivore numbers, in enabling the veldt itself and the redgrass, very palatable grasses, to actually regenerate themselves as well. So we need to take a step back and sort of realize that we're a part of nature rather than apart from it.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning at the University of Dayton.
How is everyone? What we're going to do this morning,
Tony Talbot is teaching a class about slavery.
there's over 40 million human trafficking victims in the world today.
But his students aren't just learning the facts about human trafficking. They're being trained to teach others about it, students who are even younger than they are.
We get the students to become near peer educators, going into classrooms, giving human trafficking awareness presentations. If we tell children about this now, they can become part of the solution.
Hi guys, my name is Ami. I'm a second-year student at the University of Dayton.
Today, Talbot students are taking over Nick Pence' 9th grade American history class at the Dayton Regional STEM School.
It's definitely important to know what is trafficking, because maybe you're in that situation and you don't even know that you're being trafficked.
A lot more online trafficking is happening, and I didn't really realize that before, but now that we do, you can obviously use more precautions when you're online.
I'm hoping that my students, now that they're knowledgeable, hopefully they get a little bit passionate about it, become leaders. I'm telling you, you just gotta step aside and let the next generation do its thing.
Thank you.
Coronavirus. To get daily news updates in your inbox, sign up for the CNN newsletter. Coronavirus. Fact versus fiction.
I'm Patrick Ottman in Havana, Cuba, and this is CNN.
Welcome back. Earlier in the show, we asked you this question.